All right. Well, good morning, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants event. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I'll be your host for today. A couple things to think about today. First of all, big happy Halloween to the classrooms who are tuning in today. I hope you have a fun day hanging out in your costumes at school and a great night tonight out trick-or-treating. And then a shout out to all the Jays fans out there. It's a pretty big game tonight, Game 6. We have a chance. That's pretty darn cool. So I hope you get home in time for your trick-or-treating to catch the big game. This is the last day of October. October has been a crazy month. We have had our space exploration month. So we had a ton of live events with astronauts and engineers and scientists sharing with us how we leave our planet, explore the solar system and beyond, but then how we turn a lens back on Earth and look at the changes we're making, look at our planet in ways that we never could before. November is another really, really busy month. We have our Call to Earth Week with CNN coming up next week. So we have a crazy amount of live lessons coming your way. If you visit exploringbytheseat.com, you can find all of those lessons, register with your classrooms. We'll put out another newsletter over the weekend as well with some of those lessons highlighted, and you can join us there. So to wrap up the month of October, we have an event that I'm pretty darn excited about. It's part of our partnership with Department of Fisheries and Oceans Canada. We like to host their researchers, we like to host their scientists and learn about really cool stories, both freshwater and saltwater stories. Learn about the work they're doing across Canada and why it's important. So joining us today will be Damian Lidgard. He's an aquatic biologist with Fisheries and Oceans Canada. He works with the Maritimes seal research team on Sable Island, Nova Scotia. So this is home to one of the world's largest gray seal colonies. He's been studying marine mammals for over 25 years now. He's visited Sable Island every year since 1996. That's back when I was in grade 8. That's pretty cool. He's a seal scientist and a wildlife photographer. I've had a chance to look at his website. The pictures are absolutely phenomenal. So I'll put that link up a little bit later if you want to take a look at the website as well. And Damian now is going to take us out virtually through an exploration of photos and pictures to Sable Island. We'll get to see what he's doing to learn more about the seals and what they're doing beneath the waves. So let's reach backstage. Let's pull Damian in here with us now. Hey, Damian, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good, good. Well, it's great to have you with us today. I think I should mention that there's a special endurance or heart award for you because I know you were worried about the weather. You rode into work through the rain on your bike to make this happen. So extra shout out to you, Damian, for making this happen today.
Yeah. Well, yes, it was exhilarating. Reminded me of being on Sable.
All right. Well, we're going to get to that in a second. I want to shout out to our classrooms. I see we've got a great group joining us today. Don't be shy to use the chat sidebar. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Send us in some questions. But Damian, you've got your presentation queued up. I'm going to let you take over for a bit.
Okay. Thanks, Joe. And thank you for inviting me. It's exciting to be able to share the work that we do here with people outside of our organization. So I work I'm going to, as Joe said, present the work that we do on Sable Island. So I'll introduce you to Sable Island, where it is and what that place is all about. And the work that we do here is it's based on the research on seals. So I'm going to take you through some of the work that we do, why we do it, and some of our latest research. So this is me on the right. This is my Damian Lidgard, Aquatic Biologist, Fisheries and Oceans. Who am I? That's me. It's always a good question to ask yourself who you are. And that there is a grey seal pup that we just tagged. We're going to talk more about that a little bit later on. Just to make it clear, it's not just me that is involved in this research. There's lots of people who get involved and make this research happen. So I'm just a small little cog in a very big machine. So let's talk about Sable first, because some people don't know where Sable is, or they don't know what Sable is and why it's so a magical place. So I'm taking you back 13,000 years. So we're in Canada. So you can see Nova Scotia. That I don't know if you can see my pointer. That's Nova Scotia there, and so we're before the Ice Age. So the green areas are actually land, and so you can see that there's quite a bit of green area close to the continental shelf. So that was all exposed. But as time went by and we went through the Ice Age and the ice melted and the seas rose, obviously that land disappeared. And so if we now go to 6,000 years ago, all that land has now gone. It's now underwater. But there's still a little bit of green left poking above the sea, and that is Sable Island. So that little sliver there in the red circle is Sable Island. It's a national park reserve with Parks Canada. They manage the island, and it's about 300 kilometers across the sea from Halifax, which is where I'm based. So I guess the first question is, how do we get out there since it's so far away? So this is how we get out there. First of all, we pack all of our food, all our equipment, all our people, all our personal supplies into a helicopter, and then we fly out to the island. So this is inside a helicopter. We're flying over the island. All those black dots that you see on the beach, they're seals. So that's what we're going to be working with. And this is flying with Canadian Coast Guard. And so they're taking us out to our camp where we're going to sit down and get out the helicopter and explore the island. So the other way we get out to the island is by plane. So this is a Twin Otter that flies out from Halifax, and it lands on the South Beach. So this is it landing here. And again, it will have all of our equipment inside there, our food. There'll be new people coming out to the island. Some people will be leaving the island. It takes about an hour, between an hour and 15 minutes to get out to the island. And it's quite amazing because, well, we've just done that one. You don't see anything for like an hour. Like you're basically flying over open ocean and you're just wondering, where are you going? Like, are you heading to Europe? And then this island appears, and it's not just an island, it's a sandbar. It's all made of sand. So it's a bizarre, it's a bit of a bizarre experience when you first see it. And so this is a map of Sable. So it's curved like this. It's quite narrow, about 40. It changes length quite a lot. So really, I don't know how long it is, but it's somewhere between 40, 45 kilometers in length. And we call it that it goes from the west to the east. And so we have the west and the east, and then we have the North Beach and we have the South Beach. And then when we get out to the island, there are places where we can stay. So this is the west end of the island, and this is the Westlake research camp. So this is a house, very typical house. Actually, you walk inside there and it's very typical. It's an old lighthouse keeper's house. and it can sleep about 7 people, and it's got a great kitchen and living room and several bedrooms. There's internet and indoor facilities, hot running water. It's all very cozy, and there is a fence actually around the camp, which I'll tell you about, which will become significant in a moment, because in the east end of the island there is the other camp, and this is where I stay. This is a very basic camp, houses about 4 people. We have a pump to deliver our water from a well. There's no internet, no indoor facilities, so you go outside to do that. And when you go outside, of course, you get to see the seals, and there are horses, which is very bizarre. There are actually around 500 horses that live on the island, and they've been there since the 1700s. And as I say, the population is around 500. This was taken in July, so that's a young calf. That calf would have been born around June, July, or earlier. There's a stallion and they hide behind the dune. Gone. They are quite timid, so you can't really get very close to them, nor are you allowed to get close to them. But they can, they do like to rub themselves up against buildings, so that's why we have the fence around our camps, because they can damage things if you let them rub up against them. So this is a picture from the east end of the island where I stay, the most beautiful part of the island, I think. So you can see those dunes there, and they're really quite magnificent. They get up to around 30 meters in height. Lots of grass for the horses. This was taken in January, so all the grass is brown. So you can see the horses, and you can also see all of the seals dotted along the beach. So this is why we go out to Sable, to work with the seals. We don't work with the horses. We just work with the seals. We're just interested in seals, and which is not true, but our work is based on seals. And there are, as Joe said, this is actually the world's largest grey seal colony. So there are around 70,000+ pups that are born here between December and February. So we will go out in mid-December, and we will stay out on the island until the end of January doing our our research, which we're going to talk about in a moment. But first, I'm going to introduce you to the grey seal. So here is a male grey seal, and you can hear the sounds that you can hear on Sable. That's a male snorting. There's a female just behind the male. Those kind of ghosty sounds are females sort of vocalizing to each other because they're not very happy. So this guy's a big guy. He's a big male. He's probably over 300 kilograms, so well over 600 pounds. And he's got a lot of blubber. When they come ashore, they don't feed. So they don't feed during the breeding season. And they utilize their blubber for their energy. So they can devote all of their time to breeding. They don't have to worry about going offshore and trying to get more energy from their food. This is a gorgeous female grey seal. And so the females come ashore, and they'll spend several days on the island before they give birth. So they give birth to a single pup. And this is a video of a female that's about to give birth. So she's heavily in labor, which you will clearly understand very shortly. There she goes. So it doesn't take very long for a female to give birth once they start. You can see her 2 teats there. So when the pup is born, the first thing the pup needs to do is to find those teats, because that's where the milk is. And so I just came across this female and probably waited around half an hour for her to settle down and to start giving birth. So once the pup starts to come out, it's going to come out pretty quickly. So I'll just let you watch this because it's quite amazing. And there it is, a fully grown grey seal pup. Well, it's not fully grown, it's got some growing to do, but it's going to get rid of that. There we go. So now he can breathe, he can see, he can move around. And so very like what we call precocial. So they're very, they're quite independent. Obviously looks a little bit bewildered as to what's just happened. So the first thing that this pup needs to do is, there's another seal coming into the view, blocking the view. It's not very nice. So the first thing the pup needs to do is find mum's teat. And so that's what this pup did. It went to that, but can take a bit of a time. But once they find the pup, once they find the teat, then the pup starts nursing on mum's milk. And seal milk is quite different to the milk that we're familiar with because it's very, very fat. It's about 50 to 60%. So basically half of the liquid is actually fat. And you can also see mum is very large. You can see how big she is. And all of that blubber, all of that energy is going to be metabolized to produce milk for the growing pup. So just to give you a little fun slide here. So human and cow milk has about 4% fat in it. And today, a lot of people don't like to drink milk that rich. I do, but lots of people like to drink 2% or 1% fat milk because they're concerned about getting too fat. Well, seals, as I said, their milk is 50-60% fat. Imagine going into a grocery store and finding a liter of milk that said 50% fat. That would be quite amazing. I've tried seal milk. It does not taste very nice. So I don't recommend buying it if you ever see it in the grocery store, which you won't. But it's more like melted ice cream, and it's very oily and it's a little bit green. And pups, of course, love it. And so they suckle with their mum for about 2 to 3 weeks. And of course, as the pup suckles more, they suckle like about 4 times a day. They are born around 15 kilos, so that's like just over 30 pounds or something. And then after about 17 days, that's kind of the average length of time that mum feeds her pup, they become very, very large. So this is what we call a weaned grey seal pup, and they're about 54 kilos. So this particular pup has increased its weight more than 3 times in less than 3 weeks. And that's really important for the pup because it means that they can utilize that blubber. First of all, it keeps them very warm, but they can also use that to help them find food, which of course is important for seals. All their food, of course, is out at sea, and that's what makes it very challenging for us, because how do you study an animal that spends very little time on land and most of their time at sea underwater? So we study seals using some pretty cool technology, which I'm going to introduce to you. But first, I just want to give an overview of why do we study seals? What's so important? Well, first of all, we need to know how many there are. So we do quite a bit of much of our research is to monitor the population so that we know how many seals there are and what causes the population to increase or to decrease. And then, of course, we're very interested in the foraging behavior. So we need to find out, where do seals go when they leave the island? Where do they go and eat? What do they eat when they get out there? What are they actually feeding upon? Because there's always interest in conflicts with commercial fisheries. And then how much do they eat? So these are difficult questions to answer, simply because seals are not visible. Like, we cannot actually sit down and watch them eat like you could with a horse feeding upon grass. So, as I mentioned, a lot of our work is based on technology. So this is a seal with a satellite transmitter on her head. So what we do is we catch the seal, and then we glue a satellite transmitter to the fur. So not to the skin, but to the fur. Every year, seals molt. So anything you put on the fur will fall off. So it doesn't stay on the seal forever. And then that transmitter gets carried with the seal, and the seal goes out to sea, and the transmitter communicates with satellites up in the air, and we get to find out where the seal is moving. So here's an example. This was a pup that had a little tag put on its head in late January this year, and she started on Sable Island. And she did this remarkable trip from Sable to Nova Scotia, and then they went down to she went over to the States and hung around close to Boston and Nantucket. And you can see that once she gets over to Nantucket, she starts to do some sort of back and forth movement, and that suggests that the pup is actually finding food and is starting to forage. So that's a good sign. And then a bigger animal. This is a big male. So this is a male that we tagged in July this year, and he would have been over 200 kilograms, and he's got a nice satellite on his head, and he's got another instrument on his back that records different information. So this is something that I don't recommend doing at home. If you see a seal on the beach, it's not a good idea to do what I'm about to do. This seal is still sedated, so it's not behaving normally. It's not reacting as it normally would. In fact, normally the seal would be in the water by now. So I'm just checking on him to make sure that the tag is dry, to make sure he's nice and awake, because he's about to go out to sea. And it's all caught on video. Yes, it was indeed. So this seal, he had a different track to the pup. You can see that they sort of know where they're going. But the pup is more exploring. He's kind of going out to sea and is exploring where he is and trying to find food. And males already know where the food is. So you can see that their tracks, it's less interesting. You can see that they spend quite a bit of time close to Sable Island. There's quite a lot of food around Sable. And so that male is still actually out there swimming around, and we're hoping to catch him in December and January to take that instrument off. However, as I mentioned earlier, we can't see what animals are doing underwater because they're underwater and we're just not with them. So it becomes difficult to understand their behavior. But what we do now is we are now using cameras to actually observe what seals do underwater, and it's really exciting. So this is a female grey seal. You can see she has the satellite on her head, so we know where she's going. And then on her back, she has that unit, which is a digital camera. And we put that on in November, and she'll carry it just for a few weeks, and then we'll capture her in December, early January, and take it off. So here is a video of a male that we caught a few years ago now. So you can see his head swimming through the water. This is quite close to Sable Island. And this was the 1st of January, 2018. So a while ago, New Year's Day, coming up to the surface to have a breath. And then you will see in a moment, he's got a friend that he's hanging out with and chasing. So that's another male grey seal that is hanging around Sable. So this is quite remarkable. Now we can actually see what these animals are doing, rather than just knowing where they're going and what they might be doing out at sea. we can actually get some confidence in how these animals are behaving. So we can use the camera to see how seals find food. So how do seals find food? Well, great seals are called benthic foragers, which means that they go to the bottom of the sea and that's where they find their food. So this is a video of a female grey seal. You can see she has a satellite transmitter on her head and she's driving her nose into the sand. And in the sand, there are fish that live in the sand called sand lance, and you'll see them occasionally pop out. And when she disturbs them, she will do a very quick move and grab the fish and eat it. And so remember that this is actually pitch black. So there, right there was the seal eating the fish. There's going to be another one coming up. So the camera has an infrared light, so we can see what's going on, but the seal can't, nor can fish. And there's a sun lance that just grabbed one right there. And so it allows us to see, but you have to remember that it's pitch black down there. It's also very, very high pressure too. So she's going to be around 40, 50, 60 meters below the surface. So the remarkable thing about observing animals is that you get to see all sorts of behaviors. And one of the behaviors that we found that seals do at sea we weren't expecting it. And we actually observed seals sleeping on the sea floor. So this is a grey seal. Again, it's the same female with the satellite transmitter on, and she's essentially just kind of falling down through the water column and bunk. She hits the bottom of the seabed and she's really not doing anything. She's certainly not foraging. She's not moving around. She's resting. So she's actually resting on the bottom of the sea, and which we never really thought about. But a female that goes from Sable Island to go and feed might travel 100, 150 kilometers. So after feeding, they don't really want to go all the way back to Sable to have a rest because they're not quite done with foraging. So they stay out at sea and they rest at the bottom of the seabed. Resting on the bottom of the seabed means you're hidden from predators. So it's unlikely a predator is going to find you. You can see a crab there in the left corner. And also, if you're at the surface, not only are you exposed to predators, but also sea currents might move you around and take you away from where you want to forage the next day. So that's something which was quite exciting, and we're actually trying to figure out how much time do they actually spend sleeping at sea when they go on these foraging trips. So that's the end of my presentation, and I'm now open to answer any questions you might have.
All right. Perfect. Thanks, Damian. That was a great presentation. Those pictures are absolutely beautiful. And the videos that you've collected from the birth to the kind of hidden details you're able to snag with those cameras mounted on their backs is pretty great. So yeah, we're going to spend the rest of our time doing some Q&A action together today. If you're tuning in via YouTube, don't be shy to use the chat sidebar. Send in any questions you have for Damian about seals, life on Sable Island, etc. But let's get right into it. And I want to start off with the first question that we have here in the chat, Damian. This is about the food. What are you eating on the island? How's it getting to the island? What's that like?
Well, I have to admit the food is very good. Before we go to the island, everybody who comes out with us tells us what meals they're going to make. So shepherd's pie, fried fish, a curry, whatever they want to make, they can make. And we will then go out and buy all the ingredients. We have food already on the island, so like dry foods, canned foods. So we don't need to take, there's already quite a bit of food out there, but we take out whatever else we need. And it all gets boxed up and it all comes onto the helicopter or onto the plane with us. And it lasts. We have about a 2 to 3 week period where we eat that food, and then there'll be another flight coming out, and we can order some more food, so we get more fresh food. So the food, I have to admit, is very good. It's a different lifestyle because once you're finished, you spend all day outside, and then once you're finished, you go inside for the evening. There's not a lot to do. I mean, there is still some work to do, but you can devote quite a bit of time to making a nice meal for everybody. So we take it in turns. So each person would be making a meal for, like, if you're at the West Camp, you'd be making a meal for like 7 people. And it's good. We eat well.
Okay, that sounds pretty good. You kind of touched on this question here from a classroom in Toronto is wondering, in your downtime, because obviously there's nothing on the island, what are you doing in your free time?
Well, there's not that much free time. So we wake up around 6:30. We'll have a nice coffee, look out the window at the seals and the horses and the beach, have our breakfast, and then we're out the door by around 8:30, and we will spend all our time outside. We come in for lunch, like an hour or so, half an hour for lunch, and then we're back outside again, and we're out until it gets too dark, which at that time of the year, it gets dark at 4:30. So when you get inside, well, you're very tired because you've been outside all day, and someone has to cook, someone has to clean the dishes. I have to put lots of data into the computer. By the time you get to 9 o'clock, everybody is pretty tired, and so you're in bed quite early. Definitely by 10 o'clock, you're in bed. So it's a bit like a natural cycle. You sort of wake up when it gets light, and you go to bed when it gets dark.
All right. I've got a few questions here in the chat from Miss Peltier's crew. And her students are wondering about the life of a gray seal. How long do they live for, typically?
Well, they're interesting because they can live for quite a long time. So this actually interesting. This July, we saw a female that we've been following since the 70s. So she was like in her mid 40s. I think she was 46 when we saw her. She was very laid back. She looked at us and was not alarmed by us at all. It's like she's been around for a while. So females can definitely live into their 40s. Males have a harder time, and so they might get into their 30s. Definitely by the early 30s, they're coming to the end of their life.
Okay, well, that leads to their second question, which is the predators. Do they have natural predators?
Yes, that's another interesting question. We have orcas, killer whales. They're ubiquitous around the world. And they've been sighted in these waters. I've never seen one, but we know that they are out there, and they will definitely feed upon gray seals. But the biggest predator at the moment would be white sharks. So with the changing sea temperature, we're seeing sort of an interesting movement of white sharks coming up from the States into Nova Scotia. And they do like gray seals, and we often see gray seals with rather nasty shark wounds from encounters with sharks, and sometimes we also come across seals that didn't quite make it. So white sharks are a very important predator.
Okay.
To the gray seal.
All right. Well, this question is about sea levels. You talked about obviously how it's changed in the past, but how vulnerable is Sable to sea level rise? And have you noticed changes since you first came out to the islands?
I've noticed huge changes on Sable. Sable's an interesting place in that it is continually changing. Even when we're out there, you will see it change from day to day. One of the biggest changes we've seen is on the east end of the island. So I don't know if you remember, but the East Light camp where I stay, it would take you about an hour, maybe like 50 minutes to get out to the end of the east end of the island, to the east spit of the island. When I first went out to Sable, that's how long it would take. So if you were going to go out there and come back, it would definitely be an hour and a half journey, maybe more. But today, so that's about 20 kilometers or so of land. Today, that has pretty much disappeared completely. So now when you get to the end of the dunes on Sable, you can actually see the end of the island. So a huge, like probably 15 kilometers maybe of sand has gone underwater since then. But then that sand gets deposited in other places on the beaches. It gets deposited on the west end of the island. So the west end of the island might be growing a little bit. I've also seen huge dunes, like 30-meter dunes. There was a dune that we used to call Big Flat Dune because it was so huge. It was a good landmark. If you saw that dune, you kind of knew where you were. And it was there in January that when I went back out again in like June, July, it was almost obliterated. It was almost gone. Now it doesn't exist at all. You'd never know it was there. And at the same time, other dunes start growing. So we see places which was just open beach. We used to call it the washover because water would wash over it. And now it's covered in grassland. So it's now actually well above the water level. So it's remarkable in that sense, in that maybe it can continue to act like that with rising sea rising sea levels, but it's hard to know.
Okay. Question about the I guess the main residents, the seals and the horses. Do they interact in any way? Do they just ignore each other? What's going on between them?
Yeah, they're. I can tell you they're not friends. When the seals are on the island in December, January, the horses tend to kind of keep away from the beaches because the beaches are just full of seals. But some of them do wander through the seal colony, and they will kind of run through it, which is sort of what you would do actually if you're on foot, because there is a good chance that you would get bitten. But then I think sometimes the horses play with the seals. They'll kind of walk up to a seal and the seal will get angry and try to bite it. And then the horse will back off and then it will go back again. So you wonder if they're just kind of playing with them. But the seals, yeah, if you get too close to a seal, particularly a grey seal, I'm very confident the seal will bite you. And so they do bite. I have seen them bite the hooves of the horses. So they try to get along as best as they can.
Okay. The cameras. I've got a question here about the cameras from a class in British Columbia, and they're curious if like the seals react to them in any way. Do they forget about them right after they're put on? Do they try to remove them? Have you noticed anything like that with them?
That's a really good question. And it's one that we are always very concerned about, because if you put an instrument on an animal and it changes its behavior, then you're really not studying the natural behavior of the animal. So we want to know if there are any impacts, and we have done studies where we've looked to see if putting a transmitter has any impact on the female when she comes back and gives birth. Does it impact how big her pup gets when she's nursing? And we haven't found any effects from that. So these instruments, it's not the weight of the instrument that's important for these animals, because the animal is so large. It's to do with the drag. So seals, like any marine mammal, are very streamlined because they want to minimize the amount of energy they spend swimming through water. And then we put a tag on them, and that does increase what we call drag, where it's basically increases the amount of energy a seal needs to get through the water. But we haven't found any impact on these animals. The camera is a larger instrument, so that's why we only put it on the animal for a short period of time. So we put it on in sort of early November, and then at the end of December, early January, we take that off. As far as we can tell from their behavior, it doesn't look like they have any issues with it being on their bodies.
Okay. This is kind of a fun follow-up question. They're wondering, what's maybe the most surprising behavior that you've caught with the cameras?
Actually, I meant to include this video, and I forgot to put it in. Well, we first saw this behavior with harbor seals. So we did put cameras on, actually with National Geographic, with their CritterCam program. So that's when they first started putting cameras onto animals, all sorts of animals, and they put them on. They came to Sable and they put them on harbor seals. Mm-hmm. And we were watching this harbor seal swimming, and it had been foraging at the bottom of the sea, and then it came up to the surface. But just before it got to the surface, it vomited. It threw up all of its meal. And I've now seen this with gray seals as well, so that they come up to the surface, and then you can actually see their bodies moving, and then they will, their stomachs moving, and then they will throw up their meal. And then they go around and eat all the fish that came up. So they then consume the food that they just ate. And so we were thinking, why would that happen? And we think that it's because when you're eating fish in sand, you're probably consuming a lot of sand. You can imagine horses eating grass on Sable. They must be consuming quite a bit of sand, and it does actually impact the teeth because of the grinding. And so we think that seals eat the fish. They're also eating all that sand. Then just before they come to the surface, they throw up, get rid of all the sand, and then they go back and eat all the nice clean fish.
All right, very cool. Okay, we got time maybe to squeeze in one or two more questions. So a question we love here, Damian, is we're always curious about what leads people to do what they do. So what led you to biology? What led you to seals?
Well, when I was a little kid, I was always interested in animals. I have two brothers and a sister. My sister was interested in horses. My other two brothers were not interested in animals at all. But I was always interested in them. And first I wanted to be a farmer when I was very, very young. And then I wanted to be a vet. But when I went to university, did my first degree, I was still unsure. I did my first degree in zoology. So that's kind of the study of animals and their ecology. But when I remember this very distinctly, I went to a conference in Scotland called the European Cetacean Society Conference. And I was watching videos of killer whales. There was a video of a group of killer whales. One of them had attacked a lemon shark and swam and had brought the lemon shark and swam past this scuba diver that was swimming and recording their behavior. And it was like a light switch. It just flicked. It just turned on. And at that point I said, okay, this is it. This is what I'm interested in. And I just became very interested in marine mammals. I'm interested in marine mammals because they live in two different environments, particularly seals. That they live on land like we do, but they also live in this other environment that is somewhat alien to us and have that adapted so well to that environment. And that's what I find fascinating with them.
All right. And finally, Damian, what's next for you in your research? When are you heading to Sable next? And what are you hoping to accomplish during that time?
Well, we have a big season ahead of us, actually. We head out just over a month, actually. So we're heading out on the 11th of December, and I'm out there till the 26th of January. So I'll be spending Christmas on Sable and New Year's on Sable, and I have my birthday on Sable. So I get it all done in one big go and get out of the way. That's actually not true. It's not like I don't enjoy those things, but yeah, they all happen to occur when we're doing our field season. So that's about 6 weeks or so. And then this year, we're actually going to do a pup production survey. So we're going to have a plane that's going to fly over Sable in early January. It's going to take thousands of pictures of the island and all the seals on the island. And then we're going to use that to be able to determine how many pups are born. And then we can use that number to determine what the population size is. So that's one of our biggest projects this year. I also have 20 animals out there, 10 males, 10 females that are out there with instruments on, satellite instruments. And so we have to catch those as well and take those instruments off.
Okay, sounds busy, sounds like fun. Here's hoping that for your Christmas and your birthday, you'll get a field season with as few surprises as possible. I know expeditions never go as planned, but hopefully this one will go nice and smoothly for you, and you'll have some fun out there collecting some good data.
Yeah, I hope so. It never goes smoothly, but that's the excitement of it, I think, the challenge.
All right. Well, I'm going to start off with a huge shout out to our classrooms. Thanks so much for joining us, sending in those great questions today. Hope you have fun out trick-or-treating and a great weekend. Damian, it was a real pleasure to have you join us, and hopefully we'll be doing something fun again down the line.
Yeah, anytime. And thank you again for inviting me.
All right. Well, have a great weekend, everyone. We are going to sign off for now. Thanks, everyone. Okay, we